here tonight to talk about my trip on the Appalachian Trail, a 2,189.9-mile hike that took 6 months, where I carried all of my possessions on my back and camped out most nights. How many of you here could tell me where the Appalachian Trail is by a show of hands? Oh, nice. About as many as the middle schoolers. They're very good. There we go. The Appalachian Trail runs from Springer Mountain in northern Georgia, just north of Atlanta, to Mount Katahdin in Maine, just north of pretty much everywhere else in the United States. And on the way goes through 14 states: Georgia, North Carolina, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, Maryland, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, Massachusetts, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. And most of you, for the alumni, and most of your kids, for the parents, have been, if not on the Appalachian Trail, at least near. Can anyone guess where? If I zoom in here on the North Carolina-Tennessee border to the Great Smoky Mountains, and zoom in again, the middle schoolers got it right away. It's Tremont, which is only 4 miles north of the Appalachian Trail. And when I was about here on my trip through the Smoky Mountains, I saw a sign that said, "Turn off this way, Tremont Trail." And it hit me, whoa, this is where we were. Here's a picture of my class hiking in 5th grade at Tremont. Dr. and Mrs. Chula. This is Nick. Right there, you can see him. And here are my brother and I, 13 years later, hiding out from a rainstorm because it was too wet to hike in the Smokies. So for my talk, I'm going to have 2 parts. First, I'm going to try to give you a sense of what life was like on the Appalachian Trail. And then I'm going to try to leave you with some life lessons, same ones I left for the middle schoolers, that I learned along the way. Before I get started on telling you what life was like on the Appalachian Trail, I want to do a thought experiment with all of you. Imagine that I ask you to give a speech on your first 6 months at a new job in 5 minutes. What would you tell me? You might tell me about the office, or about your coworkers, or about the industry, or about your work itself. But there's no way you could really capture what 6 months at a new job would actually be like. I had the same problem with the Appalachian Trail. It was a long and very diverse experience. So I'll try to give you as best a picture as I can, but know that I have to leave some things out. I started, fresh-faced and eager, with my brother on March 28th of this year, and finished, not as fresh-faced, but still very eager, 6 months later on September 30th. Along the way, I hiked those 2,000 miles that we've mentioned, wore through 2 pairs of boots, burned 850,000 calories, saw 5 bears. Those are the key stats you need to know. But the stats in the map don't really give you a good picture of what life was like. So here's a picture of the trail itself. It's a path that goes through the woods, 2 or 3 feet wide, up hills, down hills, up bigger hills, down bigger hills, from Georgia to Maine. That's pretty much it. Over here to the left, you can see what's called a white blaze. Here's a better picture. That's sort of the signpost of the Appalachian Trail. It's painted on trees and rocks every 50 or 100 yards. And I like to tell people that you could get on the trail in Georgia and go all the way to Maine without a map, without a compass, just picking out the next white mark and walking to it and staying in the path. And it's true, that's literally what I did. No map. Sometimes they don't take you through the woods, they take you through farmland, or by roads, or in a fit of cruelty, sometimes they take you straight up rock faces, which are always very difficult, but also fun, and get you some of the best views. So forest, farmland, roads, and mountains, that's the physical space of the trail, but what do you do on the Appalachian Trail? Well, you walk, and you walk, and you walk, and then sometimes you stop. Here's my brother enjoying a view, and you enjoy a view or you eat lunch, and then you start walking again, and you walk, and you walk. And then eventually it's time to set up your tent for the night, or to stop in one of the shelters that they've provided along the way, to have some dinner, to relax, and prepare for the next day. And that's it for 6 months. Sounds pretty fun, right? So you walk a lot, but that also doesn't really give you a very good picture of what life itself is like on the trail. So now I'm going to tell you about my favorite part and my least favorite part of the experience, and then we'll get into the life lessons after that. So without further ado, my favorite part was the community on the trail. Two things to know before I tell you about the community. First, people tend to imagine the Appalachian Trail as a solitary wilderness experience, but there are a lot of like-minded people out there trying to do the same thing as you are, walking from Maine to Georgia, Georgia to Maine. So you tend to meet a lot of people along the way and make a lot of new friends. Almost everybody starts alone, and so almost everybody needs someone to hike with. The second thing is trail names. Almost everybody who hikes the trail chooses to leave their real name behind and pick up a nickname for the trail, usually because of something silly or dumb they did. Mine was Stacks, because in Virginia, I threw a tip down on a table, and one of my friends thought it was a big stack of money. It was $3, but he called me Stacks, and so my other friends called me Stacks, and so everyone called me Stacks, and so there I was. Here from left to right, we have Rambo, real name Lauren, myself, Pterodactyl, and Ghost Rider, finishing on Katahdin on September 30th. And here we have Pterodactyl again on the left, myself on the right, and one of my best friends from the trail, Sir Poops-a-lot, in the middle. I usually just called him Poops. And they were my best friends on the trail, Pterodactyl and Sir Poops-a-lot. And the thing I'll say about trail friendships is that they're a lot like real-world friendships, but they also form much quicker. You know, I was good friends with Pterodactyl within a week of meeting him. And I don't know if that's because people don't have a lot of people to talk to, and so they tend to bond very quickly, or whether they bond over the shared hardship of hiking, or whether, because they're far away from the real world, they tend to open up more quickly. But regardless, after 4 months of hiking with Pterodactyl, I know more about him than I knew about a lot of my college friends after 4 years of living with them. But it wasn't just my close friends on the trail, there was also a wider community. People you meet on the trail tend to be some of the kindest and most generous people you'll ever meet. I know very few hikers who wouldn't share half of their meal if another hiker had run out of food before the next town, or who wouldn't have split their last liter of water with a total stranger on a hot day. People are incredibly generous, and sometimes I wish they could be in real life like they are in the woods. So my favorite part, the community and my friends. My least favorite part, right here, not my brother, the food down in the corner. Besides the bugs, the food was the absolute worst part of the Appalachian Trail. Think about what you would take along if you had to carry all of your food with you on your back all the time. The middle schoolers also got this one right away. They knew exactly what I was talking about. It would have to be lightweight, because you have to carry it. It would have to be calorie dense, because it's providing you the energy to walk. It would have to be non-perishable, because you don't have a refrigerator, and it would have to be easy to cook, because your stove is just a little propane burner. Can anyone guess what fits all of those categories? Doctors, cover your ears. Junk food. I walked through the woods eating a smorgasbord of the things your parents warn you about. I would have honey buns and instant chocolate milk for breakfast. I would have beef jerky and cheese for lunch, a candy bar for an afternoon snack, ramen noodles for dinner, topped off with Oreos, and gummy worms for dessert. That was a very typical day's diet. And you, like the middle schoolers, might think, that sounds great. I would love to eat like that. Wrong. Here's how I felt after 6 months of my on-trail diet. It was fun for the first few days and then turned into a curse. But I really liked that it got the job done. It was light enough to carry, it never spoiled, and it gave me the energy I needed to walk. Which brings me to another part that I really liked about the Appalachian Trail. Even though the food was bad, it reminded me of how much I liked the good food that I get in regular life. I won't pretend that the Appalachian Trail was some daring journey into the unknown. I was rarely more than a day's walk from the nearest road or town. But I went without, and everybody on the trail went without, a lot of the little luxuries that we're used to in modern America. I had one set of clothes. I slept on the ground using my jacket rolled up as a pillow. All my water came from creeks and streams, and my only entertainment was a book and talking with my friends. And you know what? I loved it. It was great. Take showering, for example. This is one of my favorite examples. There's no way to get clean in the woods except the rain, because you can't bathe in creeks or streams because it's bad for forest ecosystems. So I would only shower every 4 to 5 days. And after the 5th day, you really start to feel very grimy. I think that's what was also happening in this picture. But stepping into a scalding hot shower after 5 days without is the best feeling in the world. And it's the same with having a salad after a week of junk food, or sleeping in a real bed after a week on the ground. The hardships of the trail, however little, made me appreciate better the luxuries of my regular life. So the community was my favorite part, the food was my least favorite part, but it also reminded me how nice my life is otherwise. All right. Oh, one more note about food before we move on to the life lessons. There are a lot of animals in the woods, as you might imagine. We saw deer, rabbits, snakes, birds, and, as I mentioned earlier, bears. Bears are not as vicious as TV makes them out to be. Still don't want to mess with them. But what they are is great scavengers, and they love human food. So every night we'd have to tie up our dinners and our lunches and our breakfasts and our pots and pans and spoons and bowls into bags and hang them from a tree or from a ready-made bear post like this one. That is my friend Umbrella Face, tying up his food. They were going to call him Umbrella because he had an umbrella, but then they decided that wasn't a cool enough name, so they added face on the end, making him Umbrella Face. So, favorite part community, least favorite part food. Which brings us to the lessons, a key part of any TED Talk. For most of the parents in the audience, these are fairly simple lessons, and I hope you figured them out many years ago. Young alumni, maybe you can get something out of it. All right, so the Appalachian Trail Conservancy, the body that oversees the maintenance of the physical trail itself, estimates that 20 to 25% of people who set out from Georgia intending to hike to Maine make it all the way, which means that along the way, 75 to 85% of people drop out somewhere. They quit, they get too tired, they get hurt, they decide to do something else. They don't make it all the way. And this is something that I thought a lot about, both on my hike and after. Why do some people quit on the first day, and some people make it for 6 months? First, I'll tell you that who you are doesn't matter. People of all races, all genders, all socioeconomic backgrounds, all ages, all abilities have hiked the trail to completion. And I wish I had some neatly packaged answer that would tell why everybody who makes it makes it. Unfortunately, I don't. What I do have are 3 reasons that I personally made it, 3 things that got me through the hard times. First, a clear sense of purpose. That is Mount Katahdin, the northern terminus of the Appalachian Trail, framed between Rambo and Pterodactyl. I knew when I started that I wanted to hike the whole way from Georgia to Maine. And on days when things got very tough, when it was unusually buggy, or when the hills were unusually steep, or when it was so hot and humid that my glasses would slip down my face and I had to take them off, I knew that the setbacks I was experiencing were temporary, and I didn't want them to get in the way of my purpose, getting to Katahdin. So I think having that clear sense of purpose, really knowing what I was out there to do, helped push me through some of the tough times. So in addition to a sense of purpose, my friends, Pterodactyl again, really helped me along the way as well. Both because they made the fun times more fun, shared some great experiences with them, but also because they served as a support network when things were rough. On particularly nasty days weather-wise, we could get into the shelter and all sit down and get warm and complain to each other about how bad the day had been, and somehow that made it a little bit better. They were willing to listen to my problems, and I was willing to listen to their problems, and together we got through it. The third thing that really helped me, besides a clear sense of purpose and friends, was a series of coping skills that I developed, I guess sort of by accident. I didn't think of them as coping skills at the time, to help me on tough days. I would write in my journal at night to sort of work through my thoughts. I would laugh and make jokes in big rainstorms. I would take selfies when I was feeling particularly miserable knowing that later I was going to look back and be able to laugh at them. It was 40 degrees and raining, and I was climbing up a hill that felt like, it wasn't actually that steep. And my pants were soaked, and my shoes were soaked, and my pack was soaked, and I was soaked. But I'm able to look back now and laugh, so I'm glad I have a picture of it. So I guess the takeaway is that whatever you're trying to do in life, a clear sense of purpose, friends, and coping skills can help you get there. One last thought that I want to leave you with before you go is that you can do whatever you set your mind to. Hopefully you guys are in the middle of doing whatever you set your mind to. But your goal is not your life. The little moments along the way to getting to your goal are your life. Every minute and second and hour that you spend out there working towards what you want to do, those are the moments that make up your life. Just like on the Appalachian Trail, the goal is Katahdin, which is a worthwhile goal, and it gave me something to work for. But the experience of the Appalachian Trail is looking at sunrises and getting wet in nasty rainstorms and seeing cool salamanders cross the trail and all of the little moments that make the trail worth hiking. If you started at Springer and ended up at Katahdin with your eyes closed the whole way, you would have an accomplishment, but you wouldn't have an experience. So whether you want to be an engineer or a poet or a hiker bum, I would recommend at least trying out the third at some point. You can find a trail that will get you there, but don't forget to look around every once in a while. Thanks very much.